vocals sound muddy, harsh, or flat, a lot of people might think as their microphone, but it's really not your microphone. It is your EQ. So look, in this video right now, I'm gonna show you how to save $500 and show you a good EQ mixing technique. Let me show you what's going on. So look, this is the same EQ approach that I approach normally on all the platforms, Logic Pro. I don't know if you use Pro Tools, Ableton, or whatever. So the first thing, so I just want to play y'all guys right now the record without the mix, really for the mix, so I can show you what's going on. So let's play what's going on.
They like the way that I walk. Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem, I jumped off the post. Should've stayed in and stick to the coast.
So what we want to talk about right now is the EQ. The EQ have multiple different sections, right? We have the lowest mid section, which is the high pass filter section, which you might call your bass, right? And this section where we got right here might call a joint the low mids. Here is the high mids. This is right here is the air, right? So I'm gonna explain what all these sections mean in a few minutes so you can understand what we're talking about and what we're looking at. So I just played you the vocals raw. So let me add in the low pass filter so you can see what that looks like. This is low pass. So it's that low, muddy version. This is what it's controlling.
Look, rather complaining and show no results. They like the way that I walk.
So now I'm gonna bypass it so you can see what's going on. Passing or bypassing. Let me show you.
They like the way that I walk. Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem, I jumped off the post. Should've stayed in and stick to the coast. Look, rather complaining and show no results.
Even if you listen, that is a low bass area of the mix, which is what you call low end or bass area, or what you call the high pass filter section of it, which is the lower end of the mix. This is where a lot of the muddiness, this is where a lot of the bass is at. So when it comes to male vocals, right, male vocals have more bass than female vocals because if you know, even when we get older, they always say, oh, you got a lot of bass in your tone, right? So we know that male vocals is way more than female vocals, so we try to cut as much as we can as possible, right? And I have all these EQ techniques in my stand store inside of the bio, so make sure you go to my stand store in the bio. But I'm gonna just break this stuff down. So right now, that's the low pass filter. I like to cut my low pass filter anywhere from 50 to 100. That is my range for my low pass. And what do I mean by that? I like to cut between 50 to 100. And if I'm doing a lot of the low pass, cutting the low pass cutting, it gives a lot of the money inside of it. So let's play it again.
Okay. Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem, I jumped off the post. Should've stayed in and stick to the coast. Look.
So now, let's get into this section, the section which is above 100. So we know that 80 to 100 is low pass, high pass filter. And now we want to get into the mud section of it, which is more of a 200, 300 range, right? And what do you talk about? Why you say is the mud section, which is what we call the mids, right? Although mud section is where the vocals be super muddy, right? So that's the part of the vision. If most people might say, "Oh, that's what it sounds like." It sounds very. What you gonna hear what I sound like when I put it in? But it's the mud part of the vocals. So let me show you what it sounds like without it.
They like the way that I walk. Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem, I jumped off the post. Should've stayed in and stick to the coast. Look, rather complaining and show no results.
Now.
They like the way that I walk. Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem, I jumped off the post. Should've stayed in and stick to the coast. Look, rather complaining and show no results.
You see? So now that's what you call a mud section, is what we want to release as much as that parts of it. So you'll find that right here in the mud section of the vocals. So that's anywhere between 100 and probably 200 hertz. Anywhere between 100 and 300 hertz, 100 and 300. So right here is where the mud kind of exists. So from 100 and 300 hertz right here is where the mud kind of exists. So let's move on to the next section, which I like to call the nasal part of the vocals. The nasal part of the vocals is when people are talking, you might hear this, right? It sounds very boxy. It sounds very low. It sounds very honk. This is where the honk and the nasal start. So this is the part of the vocal that a lot of people want to take out, right? It's the annoying part. This is what makes a vocal pop out. And in these mid sections, you hear a lot of the instrumentation, so you might get a lot of the guitars in this midsection, a lot of vocals live in here, a lot of your lead pads, stuff like that live in this midsection majority of the times, right? So let me show y'all what it looks without it.
They like the way that I walk. Nigga out of Harlem, I jumped off the post.
Right? So now I'm gonna do it with it.
They like the way that I walk.
Now, what I want y'all to pay attention to is I'm gonna bypass it so you can see what it's doing, right?
They like the way that I walk. Coldest nigga out of Harlem, I jumped off the post. Should've stayed in and stick to the coast. Look,
coldest nigga out of Harlem. For me, it's the nasal part, so I'm gonna remove it.
They like the way that I walk. Gotta pay a 16 when I talk.
So that's the nasal area of how you can remove the nasal section of everything. And then you got your 2K, right? We jumped to 1K. I could do a lot of this stuff, which this is called surgical EQing, but this is majority of the EQ. So I'm still playing around, and this is the Pro Q2. I also own a Pro Q3 and a Pro Q1. I'm gonna have this template just inside of the preset, actually inside of my stand store. Also, if you want to grab it, and you can easily just plug it in and just do what you gotta do. But I like to do real. I like to be real surgical with stuff. So I mean, add the rest of the other high pass, the mid filters to bring out clarity.
They like the way that I walk. Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem.
You can hit right there. Look, as soon as it comes.
They like the way that I walk.
Right? Look, regular.
Gotta pay a 16 when I talk.
Ad.
Look, coldest nigga. They like the way that I walk.
See the ad?
Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem. I jumped off the post. Should've stayed in and stick to the coast. Look, rather complain and show no results.
So now, let's talk about clarity. Clarity starts right here at the 1K round and 2K round. And what is clarity? Clarity is more the punchier part of your vocals. It's the part of the vocals that stand out. It's the part of your vocals that go crazy. It's the part of the vocals that you want that it can stay in a person's face, right? That's the part of the vocal that you want to punch. And that's where everything is at. So we're going to bring clarity out. Clarity is normally from the 2K range to the 4K range. So somewhere in this space right here, the 2K range.
They like the way that I walk. Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem. I jumped off the post. Should've stayed in and stick to the coast.
Frequencies.
Look, rather complain and show no results.
Okay?
They like the way that I walk.
Another bad frequency.
Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem.
Right? So this is what they would call the. This is what you call the clarity part. You want to clean this part. This is to get the vocal sounding real crispy, warm. It gives you that body and that feeling, right? And then we're gonna do everything above this section right now. So like anything above the 1K, 5K, 10K range and above is the air section. The air section is more of the punchier parts that you want to get. And what you mean about air? What do you mean? That's where all of the pops are at. That's where all of the sizzle is at. But that's also the space that gives you also more brightness, more color. That's where the hi-hats exist.
People say, oh, how you cut, you want it with vocals not cutting through the mix.
This is how you cut it through the mix, which is the last frequency right here. I try to play it in between 10K range and 20K range. That's the high price filter. So you can what's gonna cut through the mix. We're gonna play it without it, and then we're gonna play it with it, and then we're gonna bypass it. So let's see what's going on.
They like the way that I walk. This nigga out of Harlem. I jumped off the post.
Right? That's without it. Let's do with it now, y'all.
They like the way that I walk. Coldest nigga out of Harlem. I jumped off the post.
Okay, now we're gonna do bypass so you can see what's going on. With it.
They like the way that I walk. Gotta pay a 16 when I talk. Look, coldest nigga out of Harlem. I jumped off the post. Should've stayed in and stick to the coast.
It's light. It's right in your face.
And show no results.
Without it.
Big step, a big wave.
Without it.
Do a big day.
With it. How you mix and how you EQ when it comes to session.